It's Sunday, and I woke up this morning at 8:30. I was had dinner around 1 a.m. I think last night. I was in that tent behind me there under the Alaskan Gypsy doing doing painting and all the associated tasks, sanding and um, mixing the paint and fairing compounds and all that. Another late night, and it's a calm Sunday in the shipyard, and I got up at 8:30 and went back to sleep. And I figure even I need a day of rest every once in a while. So now it's 11:30. Just finished up visiting with some new friends who are in town off of a boat called the Tangaroa. They have another YouTube channel, and they just came into Wrangell. They were hoping to actually do some work here in the shipyard, I believe, but plans may be changing. And anyhow, I think that their channel is called Sailing Tangaroa or something, but we'll do another video with them soon. But behind me there is the Alaskan Gypsy. It is our steel triple-masted schooner that we're here in the shipyard restoring. It was about to sink in the Ketchikan Harbor, and we're rebuilding the hull on it here. And it's finally a nice day. Check this out, the weather. Audrey's in the comments. Nobody's joined us yet, but this video will be on our channel. So here's the shipyard on a calm, beautiful Sunday morning. Or it's about noon now, but look at all that blue sky. I haven't seen that much blue sky in a very long time. And there's a little bit of snow. I don't know if you can see it, but right up there, there's a little bit of snow on that hilltop today. That's the first time I've seen snow this close to the shipyard. And it's a beautiful day. It's been really, the weather has been pretty terrible the last, I would say it's been a couple weeks, but there's our beloved boat with the shelter tent around it and our airplane stairs. Kind of funny. We have stairs rented from Superior Marine that are from, if you've ever been to a really small airport, that's how you get on and off the jets in Alaska at some places. Oh. There's our big 3 masts, all that rigging that I haven't looked at yet to see if it all needs replaced or not. But anyhow, I'll give you a little walk around, little view of the shelter tent. The weather has been so bad that since we started doing lives, I don't think I've really done even a walk around on the outside, because it's pretty much been windy and rainy most all the time. But I did this side of the shelter tent the first, and then this time I learned a better way of doing it, and I just did like teepee style. So single pitch on this side. You can see where I changed design methods right there. I came around the bow on my first technique, and then got a hot tip from the machinist. He was like, why not just run the boards straight down to the ground? So there's that. And it has survived some pretty good storms. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with it. This is some old carpet scraps that came out of the boat. And I had them laying around here to kind of keep the flapping down. And this is the exhaust coming out from our little heater inside. But, so anyhow, it's kind of a mess out here. Hello, Freddie. But I haven't even been inside the tent today. So I went back to sleep. I didn't wake up until 9:30 this morning. Took another hour sleeping. I'm feeling great, and the weather's great. And look at this. Here's a piece of the hull that I cut out. And just take a look at how terrible that looks. That's what the hull of the Alaskan Gypsy looked like. Ugh. Look at that thing. Those craters in there. That's the old through holes from underneath the head floor. So there's our sandblast sand. The used sandblast sand. And anyhow, here we go. We're gonna go inside the tent. Here's our magic doorway into the mystery land. Behind plastic, that's layer number 1. Here's our garage. It was so windy the other day that I had this magnet sign. This is an original from on the boat. The guy who built the boat had this sign. I had it just magnetized to the back of the boat. Well, I found it laying on the ground. It blew off the side of the boat. But let's check on our deer hanging up in here. It's been kind of warm. I'm getting a little bit of mold growing on it, but I ate a bunch last night and it still is delicious, and it's really getting tender. it's been about high 30s to high 40s, and I've been just leaving it hanging. It's been hanging for about 2 weeks now, and it's still a little bit of mold, but it's really, the flavor is great and it's very tender. But I'm probably going to cut it up and throw it in the freezer today, what I don't eat for dinner tonight. Audrey is in Anchorage. I'm here in Wrangell. William, they'll use sand. Well, technically it's not actually hazardous, and apparently you can send a sample of it away and get it tested and certified non-hazardous, which can give you some more options. Otherwise, I got to pay 30 cents a pound to ship it to Oregon or Washington to be disposed of, which is kind of a racket, but so I haven't really looked into that yet. I'm going to show you where in between. So I have my outer wall of the tent, which is the shrink wrap that you see from outside. And then this is a whole inner shell that I hung with just cheap poly plastic. Yeah, you're right. It is almost time to go hunting, Freddie said. Just another layer of really cheap 6mm plastic to just trap my heat in. So I'll come inside the second layer. Now we're in the inner realm of the project, and my heater ran out of fuel probably a few hours ago, so it's a little not as warm in here as it has been. But I'm like showing up late to work today. Here's the mess from last night, paint and tape, and this is what I got up to. So looking forward to seeing you guys get the boat in the water soon. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, me too. Can't wait. So I was hoping to paint the bottom yesterday, hoping to get Superior Marine guys in here and spray a coat of barrier coat over the entire hull below the water, but they weren't quite ready. I wasn't 100% ready, and so William said, so you can't dump the sand into a trash can. If I had the certification of it being non-toxic, I would probably open up some possibilities, possibly, but then no, not in a trash can, but maybe in like just kind of a landfilling scenario. Not a landfill, but just as like fill dirt. But I need to learn about that. Definitely got to play by the rules, because it's pretty serious stuff if you don't. So what I ended up doing is I took off the masking that we had for the water line, and I started working above the water line yesterday. And I did record some of that, and I'll make a video about that eventually, but right now I just don't have time for editing videos, so that's why I'm live here right now, to show you guys what is happening with the project and where I'm at, because I realized if I filmed it, I wouldn't get the video out for quite a while. So here we go, we're going live. So when we sandblasted, I sandblasted above the water line a ways to get rid of any corrosion. There was some rust. You can see a little bit of rust, corrosion, and spots like that that's above the water line. That's just typical steel boat rust kind of thing that doesn't have anything to do with the electrolysis, just poor paint maintenance for a few years. And so I was happy to sandblast those areas, and but they were under, they didn't get the epoxy barrier sprayed on, so they were kind of behind. It was like they were 2 or 3 steps behind everything that was below the water line, because down here they had Demet coat on them, the inorganic zinc primer, but then we taped the water line, and all the work that we did after that area was just undercover and not being worked on. So down here we've got a really heavy coat of epoxy barrier sprayed on and then spot rolled on, and I have all my fairing compound in there. I've been using, if people are interested, I've been fairing with All Grip All Fair. It's a epoxy 2-part 1-to-1 ratio, lightweight, relatively easy to sand fairing compound. Here's a little chunk of it. I just got my hands in the part A resin. Got to find a rag now, because that stuff never gets hard. Stays green forever unless you mix the hardener with it. There we go. So it's like Bondo, but really, really good Bondo. There's a little piece of it. It looks just like dried Bondo. but it has better adhesion and better flexibility. Epoxy is just better than polyester basically in all regards. So that's what this pink stuff on the hull is all the fairing compound filling in every little divot. And if you were with me when I showed you that piece of steel outside, you can imagine that was a really bad part of the hull, probably like this area here or something that had lots of divots, but now it's all just perfectly smooth. And now we'll get more paint, more epoxy barrier coats over that, and then bottom paint. And when that's done, basically at this point, we if they are able to come and paint the next heavy coat of barrier epoxy on here, they'll do bottom paint within a certain period of time, like maybe 4 to 6 hours later, could be, if I have it kind of warm in here. So that'll be basically the end of the bottom work, which is kind of amazing. There's still some stuff I could do, but basically once it's bottom painted, like, that is really the conclusion of a huge part of this whole project. So kind of hard to believe that we're actually that close to that stage. So give you a little bit more walk around. It's kind of just the same thing all around now. We've got lots of sections of the hull are just painted in perfect condition, and the little areas where there was any low spot whatsoever has been filled with that fairing compound and sanded down and refaired and sanded down and refaired. And it's not like an auto body perfect finish, but it's pretty darn good. And once it has all of the heavy thick epoxy barrier coats on it and then the bottom paint, it's gonna look, I think, really, really good. This area here was where the jack stands were. I had to move them around, so I just came in and rolled on a couple of coats of the epoxy barrier there to kind of build that section up. This, if you're not familiar with these paints, I keep saying epoxy barrier, and they're like, what does that really mean? Well, I gotta say, it's thick. I mean, the layer of epoxy paint is noticeably thick. It's not like a spray rattle can spray paint, ultra thin. It's actually has some significant thickness to it, and it's, I would say this boat is gonna be as if you took the whole boat and you dipped it in like plastic. Basically the entire bottom is going to be covered in this thick layer of very durable epoxy. If you're familiar with those little hardware store squeezy tubes of epoxy, it's got the two parts and you squeeze it and they come out equal amounts. It's literally like the same thing, except this is in 5-gallon buckets. And when you smear that stuff on here, or roll it or spray it, it creates this incredibly durable, thick coating over the steel. So the steel on this boat is never going to touch water again unless I run into something and severely damage the coatings. It's basically like someone in the shipyard told me, it's like, I have a plastic bottom boat now. The bottom of this boat is made of plastic, essentially. It's epoxy, but the steel is completely encapsulated in this stuff. So anyhow, a little bit more back to the status for you who have been with us on the journey and are like, yes, Scott, we've heard you talk about this over and over again. This is the big deal for last night, was getting that edge up there. I had to grind down where I had sandblasted into the red. The sandblaster, it explodes that epoxy paint off. The boat had a thick layer of paint on it before, and so the edge where I sandblasted, which is now represented by this gray line, I had to go along that edge and fair it all in. So I sanded and ground it down so that when I go back and paint like I am now, I've done one coat up there so far, I can have a nice edge that's smooth, and you won't be able to see a big, like, oh, he took all the paint off here and a big lump, and now we're back to the original coatings, because I got to build it back up to kind of make them match each other in a smooth fashion is what I'm hoping to do. So we'll get up there. I'm going to turn on the lights, because why not? I got these. Check out these lights. If you don't know about these lights, these things are awesome. You can get them from Amazon. They're 8 feet long and they daisy chain together. So you just plug in one at the end and then you can run them like I have it the entire wall of this tent. And at this end, I've got a switch and turn them on and they're all connected. You can go for as long as you want. And it was like $180 for 10 of them, 8-footers. These are amazing. Highly recommend them. So I'm going to show you. We'll get up close and look at this. I'm curious. You're just with me. I'm just walking in the tent for the first time myself this morning. So I'm pretty curious to look and see how my paint did last night. So I'm going to grab this little step ladder. Here's the 2 tools I was using. These are kind of a thing. I don't know. A lot of people don't know about these. They're called strip discs. They just go on an angle grinder and it's like a dishwashing sponge is what it looks like. But these things strip paint like nothing. They never clog up. If you've used a wire wheel or a flap disc or a grinding sander, you know how if you try and cut through this paint, this really thick paint on a boat like this, you'd plug a wire wheel up, not a wire wheel, but plug a sandpaper up right away. These things never plug up. And I did, this disc is basically like brand new and I did half the entire boat's water line with it. And it's amazing. And it's totally effortless. Just absolutely dissolves the paint. And then I was also working with this, my new DA sander. I just bought this little bugger, $320. But it's so lightweight and powerful, hooks up to air supply, could hook a vacuum up to it. And I was running 36 grit sandpaper on that. Working on this edge up here, which let's take a look at it. So here we go. That's an area that was a depression in the hull. There was some corrosion there, so I really put the paint on super heavy there. And you can see it's a little thick and ugly, but I'll sand it down. I was kind of using the paint like as if it's a fairing compound because it is so thick. You can do that with this stuff. And I'm just seeing it's a little bit, still a tiny bit green. I can push into it with my fingernail on that really thick parts. But everywhere else it feels probably ready to sand. I was kind of curious how I put it really thick into these low spots like this spot here. I just kind of goobered it in there, honestly. So my thumbnail is marking it. A little too early to sand, but I could probably do the fairing compound over it. That's the thing about these epoxies. They work together really well, and I'll do a little bit of research, but I bet that I can fair over this now because the epoxy will continue to cure underneath other coats of epoxy. Like you can't really put it on too thick per se to cure. It'll cure, like it'll cure underwater. It's not like normal water-based paints or whatever that you gotta keep it dry and it needs to off gas. This stuff cures on its own with the 2-part. So this is the edge that at this point you can't really see it. Like I said, I'll post a video eventually, but this was bare steel down here. And then the inorganic zinc primer called the Met Coat was on there. And then it was kind of just on a rough sandblasted. Up here, it's got a full coating stack on it. So it's probably almost a 1/16 inch thick of paint. It's got a primer on the steel. This had all been sandblasted before. It's got a primer on the steel. And then it has an epoxy buildup of pretty thick, you know, quite a few layers. And then it has what this probably was originally a urethane top coat, this red. And so these spots like this are little spots that had a blister. The paint had failed or there was something had happened and there was just a tiny little spot there. And I ground all the paint out down to bare steel. And then I'm gonna build it back up. And I'm feeling it to see if I'm getting close to the thickness. It looks like I probably need to do at least another heavy coat to get it back up to original thickness so that I can top it with a a urethane top coat. This stuff, the 240 LT, is the epoxy barrier, and it's not really meant to be exposed to light. It doesn't have UV protection in it. It's basically a primer coat, essentially. And so I'll cover all this up with a urethane top coat. After I sand, I'll try and fair this edge together and obviously smooth off these areas. And I'll probably do fairing compound in these areas. And so when I'm done, it's not going to be beautiful and perfect. I'm not trying to achieve like auto body style. You know, I'm probably not going to be out here with the long sanding block trying to make sure there's not any variance in the curve of the boat, because though this boat is not technically a work boat, it's kind of built in workboat fashion. You know, it's a heavy duty steel boat. I'm not worried about little imperfections in the curves of the hull. Mostly I want it to not look terrible and be very well protected from further corrosion. So that's my goal, and it's fun to improve and make things look nice, but I got to keep things in perspective. So I'll try not to worry this stuff to death too much, and I'm excited to get these spots filled and do a little sanding. The roller definitely left some pretty good texture on there. I'll probably sand all of this down a little bit just to take all the high spots off before I do another coat on it. And I was rolling with like a 3/8 snap roller last night. I'll show you these little rollers I got. This is pretty typical little 4-inch hot dog roller. I really like these. They really are good at getting a lot of paint into small areas. But when I go to do the next coat on there, I'll probably switch to one of these little 1/4-inch nap. This is a mohair roller. They're meant for smooth surfaces, and it'll do a smoother finish. The paint is so thick, it's almost like yogurt or something, that when the roller rolls on it, it leaves quite a bit of texture. And from the thick rollers, if you have a thinner roller, my understanding, and I'm no expert on this is just what I've come to learn, a thinner roller like this will do less of this. I'm not sure if the camera's going to show the texturing really. There, you can maybe see it. That's the roller texture, and it's okay for my early coats, but I will definitely not want my top coats to be near that rough. And if I don't address it now, it'll just the roughness will keep building up through the layers. AK Flyer said, can you thin the paint? I was really thinking about that last night, and I was wondering, are you supposed to thin this paint? But honestly, I wanted it thick because I was trying to get a real thick rolled on coating. That's the main advantage to spraying in an application like this, as far as I understand. And just so you know, I'm not even close to any kind of an expert on this stuff. I asked my friends, how should I do this all the time? I was on the phone with my friend Rich in Homer. He has done boat painting for a career, and so I was asking him how I should do this. I didn't know. It was definitely learn as you go. And I was painting really late last night, so I didn't ask him any questions further. But I think the deal with thinning this epoxy paint is, if you're trying to put it on thick, you don't necessarily want to thin it, but it goes on fairly rough with a roller. On spraying, that's one of the major advantages of spraying, is you can spray it on really thick and it doesn't have any texture. It goes on smooth with the spray. But with the roller, you can only get it so thick, and you start getting this kind of goobery looking stuff when you get it really thick, which in that place is fine. I don't really care how rough that is, because it was a crater in the steel, and I'm going to fill it with fairing compound anyhow, so it doesn't matter to me. But so yeah, you can absolutely thin this stuff, and I think if you're trying to achieve a smooth finish, I think it's helpful to thin. But when you're trying to build up thickness, the thinner just dissolves away and leaves you the paint. And so I wanted to build as much thickness as I could practically. And maybe I did the wrong thing, maybe I didn't. Time will tell, but it looks good to me. I'm pretty happy with it. So I think I'll probably end up putting another coat on there, and then I'll peel that tape off, and then hopefully tomorrow will be Monday. Hopefully tomorrow I can get the guys in to spray the bottom with a heavy coat of the epoxy barrier, and then later in the day, if things work out, they'll do the bottom paint. And I'm having them spray, even though I'm tight on budget and like doing everything myself. This is one of the areas in this project where I just think it's worth spending the money. I think it does a much better job. You cannot do a spray quality paint with a roller. It's not the same thing. You can get paint on there for sure, but you can't put it on as smooth and you can't put it on as thick. So in one coat. My friend Rich told me that he can do spraying in one day what would take him 4 days to do rolling. And those are not 4 days of nonstop work, but over the course of 4 days. So a spray setup basically saves him like 3 days when he's building up a coating stack on a boat hull like this. So that's pretty significant difference. And I know it's a smoother coat when he's done. So that's something I'm willing to spend the money on because it saves us a lot of time, and every day has a cost being here in the yard. And also the time window, basically you have to put the bottom paint on while the last barrier coat is still what they call thumb printable, meaning you can push your finger into it and leave like a fingerprint pattern in it. And I think it's something to do with the epoxies chemically bonding with each other when they're both not completely cured. So what that means is in order to do that, I have to roll the entire boat, probably do a whole bunch of roller coats, and then a few hours later do the bottom paint, which it would be a lot of rolling. And if I could have them, it's basically $220 an hour, the spraying, and they can spray the whole boat in probably an hour. There's some setup and stuff, but so anyhow, there's I'll show you this area up here. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of an odd sort of part of this boat. The water line is all, here along the hull, but then the stern comes up pretty high. And so the water line is actually down below the chine on the stern. I see I got some water runs up there. I don't think that really hurts much though, is my understanding, but we had some rain last night. So that area will not be bottom paint, even though it's literally under the boat, which is kind of odd. And I'll probably do some fairing in there too. That was another area where there was some pretty significant rust. And some texture from that. Here it is when it's filled. That whole area, I think it might have been like they had a jack stand there at one point when they were in the shipyard, and they didn't get that area coated very well or something, because it was basically a square. And that's what it looked like before it was faired. And here it is all faired in, kind of built up. So I'll work to achieve the same type of thing there. And I got another spot I wanted to look at. You're just kind of here with me on my morning inspection. This is where jack stand was. This jack stand was over here. And so I didn't get that area faired. And I was kind of curious to see what it looked like after a couple coats of rolled on barrier. I will probably fair that one today. It'll need to cure all day before it would be ready to be painted over, and I think I have the time. So there was a couple little spots in here where my fairing wasn't very good, and I was curious to see if they were noticeable with that coat of paint. Here we go, I can see them right there. There's a couple spots where my fairing compound was a bit low, needed another coat, and I wanted to see if they were glaring errors, and honestly, they're pretty much a non-issue. because I have some areas in my fairing compound that aren't perfect. Like that's a little low spot right there. And there's another little spot that should get filled. And I probably will fill them because I got the time. That's another little imperfection there. I got a few little tiny kind of pinhole things. So I'll probably go around and do another touch up on that because I got time, but I have to get things warmed up again because it's cooled down in here a little bit. I'm gonna check the temperature with my little thermometer. Let's see, what are we at? 54, that's not bad. The epoxy fairing compound, Dawn told me 58 is kind of the bottom end for it. You don't want your you don't want the metal to be below 58 degrees for that stuff to cure, and it probably would take 16 hours to cure. As Sign Digger says, fish won't mind, they're the only ones that will see them put it on thick either way, man. Yeah, I know. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist beginner, which is like the worst possible thing. I want it to be perfect, but I don't know what I'm doing or how to do it. So I'm having crash course school of hard knocks here in the shipyard, learning as I go and wanting it to be perfect. And it's further aggravated by the fact that the folks in this shipyard really hold themselves and all of their projects to a very high standard. And so I'm struggling personally, like, that's good enough. You know, I have a hard time just saying that's good enough. Leave it. Like, look, I'm looking at these tiny little divots in the bottom of a boat. Like, come on. Like you said, the fish are the only ones that are going to see it. But here I am worrying about it. And unfortunately, if one of the yard guys comes in and looks at it, they don't help me at all. They're like, yeah, you didn't do a very good job. And they kind of, they're all very proud of their work, and they all seem to relish the opportunity to tell me that my work is not up to snuff, and I'm vulnerable to it. And obviously I can laugh about it, but it is partially, this whole thing is kind of ridiculous. Like, to a certain extent, I'm acting like the bottom of my 66 foot hull is like the hood of a car or something. Like, oh boy, I'm in here, like, oh wow, there's a tiny divot. There's a tiny divot right there. I could make that better. So I am making it better, but I'm trying not to do it when it delays the project by another 16 hours because I have to wait for that to cure before we can paint. So that's kind of where we're at. That's pretty much the project update. I think today, what I'll do right now is I'll get my heaters going again and get it warmed up in here. And then I think I'll do a quick sand over all of this gray paint with probably 80 grit on that DA sander, the air powered one. And I've got some 80 grit paper here. And just scuff it up, knock down the high spots. And then I'll probably go into a fairing compound after that. I got a lot of little spots along that gray edge to fair out, and some spots below the waterline too, a couple areas that didn't get faired. Jamel, you get all the divots. I gotta look at some comments. Thank you, Sign Digger. He said I'm doing a great job. Fish won't mind, you're right, that's funny. AK Flyer said they thin the paint to spray. Yeah, definitely. They thin it a lot when they spray it. Sorry, I wasn't really keeping up on comments. Let me just hit it if there's any questions. Jamil says they'll look good from 30 feet away. Yeah, that's for sure. And the bottom paint is really forgiving. It's like a dull matte finish, so it's not going to highlight any of these issues. And it's going to be underwater, for goodness sakes. I definitely laughed thinking I'm doing so much work on this bottom, and then we're going to stick this thing in the water and we'll never see it again. I mean, it's not totally true, but you know what I mean. It's going to be underwater. So the Alaskan Disney will sure look so much better. Yeah, I'm going to be proud of this bottom for sure. Like new and long lasting, yes, it is going to be a really, the paints have really developed. The technology has really gotten good. There's boats in this yard that haven't been painted for over 12 years, and they look excellent because the paints hold up so well. Every minute worth doing the work proper as possible. Yes, I know. Sign digger, you're doing, thank you. And always do your absolute best. Yeah, I'm trying, but sometimes your best is compromising and knowing when enough's enough, right? You gotta do your best energy in your project and your time and your resources, because if I have a perfect bottom to the boat and I don't have a propeller shaft in it or a prop because I was so busy overdoing it on the fairing, I didn't get my prop ordered, then I'm not doing a very good job. So you get all the divots. You get all the divots is unlimited budget. Looks good. Oh, you get them. Yeah. Yeah. When you're getting paid and the better you fill them, the more you earn. I could see, man, I'd be in here for another week getting it perfect, but it doesn't work that way for me. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I guess I'll take you guys outside to finish off our video. If you joined us and you hadn't seen the beautiful scene out here, here we go. Outside the tent, and I guess I want to show for any people that didn't get to see it, that's what the bottom of the boat looked like. There it is. That's a chunk that they cut out of the hull, and that's what she looked like. So there's the, you can actually see, there's the Demet coat, there's the raw steel, there's the Demet coat inorganic zinc primer, there's the black is their first coating of epoxy barrier, and then the gray is more epoxy barrier, and then the red was probably a bottom paint at one point, was probably bottom painted red once, and then it was bottom painted black. So that's kind of the stack, what I'm seeing there. Those are my guesses at what we're looking at. And this gray stuff is like calcium buildup. It was probably a little bit of marine growth that got left on between layers or something. I'm not really sure, but anyhow, there's that. There's the beautiful view, blue sky, and gonna walk around the bow and say goodbye to you all on a Sunday. And I'm gonna get the heat going and jump in there and get to work. Little walk around view of the Wrangell shipyard. There's lots of boats have been coming in, getting shrink wrapped to sit here for the winter. Some of them are having work. Look at that monster over there. It's a big yacht, motor yacht, fully sheltered in and ready to withstand a storm. There's a seiner over there that they're doing a lot of work on. A little fresh snow up on the mountaintop. And there's our Gypsy. It's not raining right now, but it looks like it might be raining in a few minutes, huh? So thanks for joining me. And I'm excited to keep working on the boat here today. And we'll see how the day goes. Might think about doing another live project status update this evening. And if you're not subscribed, please do join us on the journey. We'll be putting this thing in the water. My hope is by Thanksgiving. We'll see. And until then, lots of hard work to do and parts and pieces to get together. And I'm excited, motivated to get to work here, feeling good. Got some rest after yesterday. And thanks, Jamel. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate all your support, and talk to you again soon. How do I end this thing? Push that.